Yeah, all right. All right, well, welcome everybody. Let's go ahead and we'll open in a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you again for the opportunity to come before you, to open your word, and to dig and delve and to refine and to sift and to see the things in your word that you have for us today that might enhance our lives to make us more capable of walking with you, Lord, in a manner that pleases you. As we study about Jesus, we're studying about you. And I pray, Lord, that you would help us to see the attributes that you have through Jesus and how we can hopefully adapt to be more like you. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so last week we saw that Jesus is continuing on his preaching tour. He'd preached in Nazareth probably for the last time and continued on. We saw he had great compassion for the people. He saw them as oppressed and afflicted or cast down, like sheep without a shepherd. He encouraged his disciples to pray that the Lord would send laborers into the field, and it so happens that Jesus sent them into the field. So they were kind of an answer to the prayer. So he sent them out 2 by 2s, thereby enhancing his effectiveness. We talked about sending them out 2 by 2 because, among other things, it's encouraging to each other. You're not there all by yourself. You can keep each other encouraged. You can also help to continue to work together. So it's a good thing, 2 by 2s. It's never, our Christianity is not meant to be lived by ourselves. He gave them a message to preach, which is the kingdom of God, and also the authority to cast out demons and to heal the sick. And we just spent some time on that just to imagine the first time that you did that. You had that authority. You walk up to somebody, put your hands on them, and suddenly whatever it was they had is gone. It would have just been just an astonishing thing, a very heady experience. Even Judas Iscariot, we can assume, received the same thing. So even he who was about to betray Jesus, he also had the opportunity to do this. And as they were doing it, needless to say, Jesus and his actions came to the attention of Herod Agrippa. You can't escape that, and this is such an impact on his kingdom that he was concerned and wanted to figure it out. So that's where we're going to pick up in Mark chapter 6. So if you haven't done so, go ahead and turn there. We're going to be going actually back and forth between Mark, Matthew, and John, because each one of the writers have certain details that the other don't necessarily have. So it just helps us have a more well-rounded picture of what exactly is going on. It's kind of like, we've heard it discussed in the past. It's kind of like when you have, let's say there's been a traffic accident and Scott's investigating the accident, and it goes to court and he has 5 or 6 witnesses that witnessed the accident. So if 5 or 6 witnesses come up, are they going to say exactly the same thing, the same sequence, the same emphasis? No, this person was standing on this side of the car, this person was standing on that side of the car, this person over here was looking in the front. So if nothing else, they had different perspectives of what's going on. But when Scott weaves the story together, you have a well-rounded story. And that's kind of what the gospel writers do for us. They weave it together for us so that we have a really good picture of what's going on. So let's start with Mark chapter 6 and verse 14. And King Herod heard of it, and what he heard of it there again is the preaching tour and Jesus' work that he's been doing. For Jesus' name had become well known, and people were saying, John the Baptist has risen from the dead, and that's why these miraculous powers are at work in him. But others were saying, he's Elijah, and others were saying, he is a prophet like one of the prophets of old. But when Herod heard of it, he kept saying, John, whom I beheaded, has arisen. So needless to say, Jesus was the talk of the territory, and it couldn't be any other way. I mean, we're talking about vast numbers of healings, demons that are delivered. We're seeing a couple of resurrections that are about to occur, and one actually that has occurred. People all over are speculating about Jesus. Plus, he's teaching. No one teaches like this guy. And you think about the Sermon on the Mount. It stands in a class all by itself. So they're all speculating about what Jesus is about. And in verses 14 to 15, you have some ideas of Jesus' identity. One of them is a resurrected John the Baptist. Now, John the Baptist, how many miracles is it recorded that he did? 0 is correct. He didn't do any. So you're saying, well, this person, maybe he's a resurrected John. Now he does miracles. We don't know. That's a possibility. Elijah was predicted to come before the Messiah, so it would make sense that they would consider Elijah. Now, how many miracles did Elijah do during his lifetime? Do you remember? 7. He did 7. That's recorded. He may have done more, but we have 7 that are recorded. So he did some miracles. So is he Elijah? And also some of the prophets of old. Some of the other prophets did miracles, but many didn't. But they're trying to figure out, where does Jesus fit in this slot, I guess it was. Herod's conclusion, it was John the Baptist resurrected. You notice in verse 16 it says he kept saying. He repeated it over and over and over. Herod had a really guilty conscience. And I think he was mentally deficient as well. He was being tortured, I think, for his wickedness. So he is troubled in conscience because of what he did to John the Baptist, and he thinks it might be him. So let's talk about Herod Antipas just for a moment, because Herod the Great died in 4 BC. Herod Antipas is his son, who began reigning from 4 AD until about 34 AD. Herod Antipas grew up in Herod the Great's family, full of ruthlessness, ambition, murder. It was quite a terrible place to grow up if you're going to grow up in a home. Several of Herod Antipas's brothers were killed, and his mother was killed as well by Herod the Great because he suspected them of treason, which frankly probably was true. It probably was acts of treason that were being plotted, and so he put them to death. Herod the Great also was the one, you remember, he ordered the death of the children under 2 years old in Bethlehem to try to get Jesus, as it were. So Herod the Great was, in that respect, was a morally bankrupt, terrible person. Herod Antipas really wasn't much better, but he didn't have the same vision or motivation as his father. He was much weaker, as it were. Also, when Herod the Great died, Herod the Great's kingdom was divided up into 4 parts. So Rome had more control that way. So Herod Antipas, he married an Arabian princess. His brother Philip, who ruled northeast of Galilee, married his younger niece named Herodias. However, as time went on, you remember the show Wife Swap? That's what they did. They actually swapped wives. So that Herod Antipas became the husband of Herodias, and Philip became the husband of the Arabian princess. Now, let's continue on in verse 17. For Herod himself had sent and had John arrested and bound in prison on account of Herodias, the wife of his brother Philip, because he had married her. For John had been saying to Herod, "It's not lawful for you to have your brother's wife." Herodias had a grudge against him and wanted to put him to death, and could not do so. For Herod was afraid of John, knowing that he was a righteous and holy man, and he kept him safe. And when he heard him, he was very perplexed, but he used to enjoy listening to him. So, how did John react to Herod's new marriage? Peggy? Yeah, he wasn't a fan. Right? So we don't know, did he actually tell Herod face-to-face this, or was he preaching and teaching and somebody relayed this information to Herod? I kind of lean toward the latter, because I don't think that he would have been preaching in Herod's presence and got away with it, as it were. But either way, Herod heard about it, and John said he was sinning, and John was in prison. Free speech wasn't much in vogue at that time, I guess, right? And what was Herodias' reaction to John's message? How did she feel about it? She also wasn't much of a fan, right? It says she held a grudge against him. She wanted to put him to death. We're talking a major grudge. Now, it's interesting, too. We talk about similarities between John the Baptist and Elijah. this is another similarity that's kind of crazy. Who was it that was a threat to Elijah? I heard somebody. Jezebel, exactly right. So Elijah had his Jezebel, and we have John the Baptist has Herodias. Now in verse 20, it says that Herod felt afraid of John. Herod was afraid of him. He was also considered righteous and holy. But wait a minute. Herod had all the power. He had all the wealth. He had all the prominence. Why is he afraid of John? Mindy? A human being and what? He's a human being and has a conscience? Maybe. No, I know, I'm teasing. Yeah, I'm teasing. Yeah. Why, Peggy?
Well, he wasn't really a very good Jew, but he still had some of that foundational knowledge. And this was somebody who had to be sent from God. So he was feeling guilty about all the things he'd done.
Okay, so he did have a conscience. He had Jewish training, yes, he did. So it perhaps bothered him. Any other ideas? He's afraid of John, which is just kind of crazy to me, but I get it that he was. So Herod kept him safe, actually, from Herodias. He actually put some distance between himself and Herodias was. So he kept him safe in prison. And he listened to him often, and it says that he enjoyed listening to him, but yet it was perplexing to him. Any thoughts on that? He's listening, he's finding it perplexing, but yeah, it's kind of enjoyable. Any thoughts on that? Okay. Obviously intriguing. Yeah, it's intriguing to him, the message, perhaps the way he talked. There's some speculation of how he talked. He might have been regarded as kind of a crazy guy, and how he lived and how he talked, communicated. Jen. No, I appreciate it. That's really good. Taryn, you had something.
As someone who grew up, like Herodias, who's like learning all the Jewish heritage to be able to, rule over his kingdom, he's, probably half interested, half invested, and seeing things that look like the prophecies happening is surely interesting until that guy condemns you for whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
And not so interesting after that.
Yeah. Oh, that's.
How did I ever think this guy was cool?
Okay, no, it's cool. I'm gonna mention something about Dean, and Dean, you're here. So a story that Dean and he shared with me some time ago. Dean was pretty good friends with a fairly wealthy person who lives over the mountains somewhere, and Dean was a fascination to this guy because Dean, in more than one time, told this man that he had nothing that Dean wanted, and that was short-circuiting him. I'm paraphrasing your words. Short-circuiting him because there's nobody else around him who doesn't want something that he has to give. And so it was perplexing, and so he listened to Dean. Dean, just like John the Baptist, there you go. I mean, seriously though, making an impact just by being yourself. I'm sorry, go ahead, Steve. Did you have something?
There's several things going on here.
Well, make it one. Oh, yeah.
So Herod may have been concerned about the population against them, but a lot of people have referred to him as having a conscience.
Mhm.
They hide. They don't want to be found out. But it's interesting to me, there's a lesson that's worth paying attention to just in my own person, is that you see Herod's perception of who John is goes back to that. When we're involved in sin, it clouds our judgment.
Mm-hmm.
It ruins our ability to see reality as it is. It distorts things. And we don't know that that's happening. But just like my sister often says, sin makes us stupid.
It does.
So Herod's fear, if you will, probably is associated with his presumption that John the Baptist had come back to life, and just that altered view of reality.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah. You know, one of the books by Chuck Colson that I read years ago, he talked about an event that he personally witnessed. So Mother Teresa, I know she's Catholic and we wouldn't agree with some of her theology, but just consider how she was viewed by the rest of the world. So Mother Teresa, she's about 4 feet 8 inches tall or so, very small. She was in the United States, she was invited to speak before Congress. And so she enters a room with a couple of people that are with her. She's a very tiny woman, very old. She's walking very slow. And all around are people, Congress people, that are talking and, making jokes and stuff like that. And as she's walking, being led to the podium, all of a sudden all the talking stops. And people start looking. And people start to kind of like make way. They make a path for her to get up to the podium. Now, this is the same kind of contrast. Those people in that room are the movers and shakers. They're the ones that make the laws. They're the ones you look to for leadership and guidance. And here's this little old woman who has nothing going for her except her ministry. And it makes an impact upon these people like they can't believe. And then she gets up on the podium and you think, okay, well, that's done. Oh, no. She starts to talk and she starts railing against the United States for abortion. And she says, President Clinton, send me the children you don't want. Send them to me in Calcutta. She didn't say it that loud, but you know what I mean. Wow. Same kind of thing. We're talking about real power versus those who think they have power. They have some, but real power. And I think that's what Herod's looking at. He had power, etc., but here was somebody who had a power that he really couldn't understand. But it was very, very real. Verse 21. A strategic day came when Herod, on his birthday, gave a banquet for his lords and military commanders and the leading men of Galilee. And when the daughter of a Herodias came in and danced, she pleased Herod and his dinner guests. And the king said to the girl, Ask for me whatever you want, and I will give it to you. And he swore to her, Whatever you ask of me, I will give to you, up to half my kingdom. And she went out and said to her mother, What shall I ask for? And she said, her mother, the head of John the Baptist. Immediately she came in a hurry to the king and asked, saying, I want you to give me at once the head of John the Baptist on a platter. And although the king was very sorry, yet because of his oaths and because of his dinner guests, he was unwilling to refuse her. Immediately the king sent an executioner and commanded him to bring back his head. And he went and had him beheaded in prison, and brought his head on a platter and gave it to the girl, and the girl gave it to her mother. When the disciples heard about this, they came and took away his body and laid it in a tomb. Verse 21, it's a strategic day. A strategic day for whom? Who's it a strategic day for? For Herodias. I mean, he's going to have a birthday party. He always has a birthday party. His birthday parties are always what you would expect. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of drinking, reveling, partying, etc., making a big deal like he's somebody. It's a strategic day for Herodias. She had to think about these things, to think this through, because remember, her motivation, she wants John the Baptist dead. And so this is a strategic day for her to make that happen. Invited guests. We have Herod's military leaders, his political cronies, and a list of who's who in Galilee. You have all the prominent people who would come, because many wouldn't come, there at his party. In the midst of this, in verse 22, we see what happens. Herodias comes in and begins to dance. Now, that could be really cute if you're a Awanakubby or a adventure club tracker. It could be really cute. She wasn't a Awanakubby, and she wasn't an adventure club tracker. She was probably in her mid to late teens. So her dancing was not to be cute. It was to be a seductive dance, and that's exactly what it was. Now, this is extremely scandalous. The daughter of a king does not do this. The daughter of a king, this would be considered to be dishonorable to the family for her to do this. That would be for a slave girl to do, not for the daughter of a king. What should have happened? What should Herod have done when he saw this? Stop! What are you doing? No, you are the king's daughter. Don't do that. No, that's humiliating. That is dishonorable to me. He didn't. Herodias knew her husband, and he allowed it to keep right on going. And so at the end of that, it says that Herod's response was a vow of up to half his kingdom, which is the complete opposite of what he should have done. You know, a vow, this would be a reward for doing that. You shouldn't have been rewarded. Now, you look at that, you say, up to half my kingdom, you say to yourself, oh my goodness, the guy's out of his mind. Well, he was, but, it was common back in that day for somebody to say this. If you are a king or whatever, and somebody does something amazingly heroic or something really significant, you would actually say that. You'd say, I want to give you an award, even up to half my kingdom. Now, no one really expected you to say, well, I'll take Lake Galilee, you know. No one really expected that because it is a common saying. But on the other hand, you would expect something. You would expect a reward. So he's legitimately being gregarious, and what do you want? And so he gives her this option. And so her name is Salome, or Salome is probably how you pronounce it, but Salome gets counsel from her mother, and she adds a twist. Now, it's interesting that Salome didn't go, you? No! What? An old head? I want some turquoise jewelry. You know, I want something wow. No, but she didn't even skip a beat, it seems. She goes right along with that, which says a lot about her. What is she turning out to be, growing up in the home that she's growing up to be? But then she adds a little twist of her own. She says, well, this is a festive party. I want the head on a platter. And I also want it in 3 days. No, at once. Why at once, do you suppose? Maybe before Herod had a chance to sober up, to figure out a way around it. I want it at once. I want it right now. Herod's attitude and reaction, boom, the trap was sprung. He did not want to kill John for several reasons. He truly respected him as a holy man. Plus, as somebody mentioned, he has a following, and there could be repercussions of this. He doesn't want to kill John, but he is trapped, and in his state of mind, he can't think of a way in which to get out of it. His main concern, of course, is the people in the room who will view him as not carrying through with his vows, and therefore he carries through and sends the executioner off to do that deed. They bring the head to her, she gives it to her mother, and then John's disciples bury the body. What a tragedy. And I've mentioned before, I've tried to put myself in John's place more than once. You're in prison, and suddenly you hear somebody walking in, and the prison door opens, and there's the executioner. You're going, you know, I just didn't think the kingdom was going to end up this way. I really thought, pure speculation, I really thought I was going to be a part of this thing. Being put to death wasn't exactly, I don't think, on his mind, but he did. Hold your place there and turn to Matthew chapter 14 just for a second. Just look at one verse here. So this is during the time that Jesus has sent his disciples out. They're ministering. We don't know for how long they were ministering, probably several days. But in 14 of Matthew, verse 13, now when Jesus heard about John, he withdrew. So Jesus, during this time, heard about what happened to John. People probably came right to him directly. Remember, not only was John kind of his Elijah, but also they were related. John was a cousin. So there's more than one reason that Jesus would be concerned. Do you think there was an effect on Jesus? Do you think there was an impact on him? I tend to think so, and I'll add to that idea just a little bit. But let's pick up with Mark chapter 6 and verse 30. The apostles gathered together with Jesus, and they reported to him all they had done and taught. So they've come back around after their time. And Jesus said to them, come away by yourselves to a secluded place and rest a while. For there were many people coming and going, and they did not even have time to eat. They went away in the boat to a secluded place by themselves. The people saw them going, and many recognized them and ran there together on foot from all the cities and got there ahead of them. When Jesus went ashore, he saw a large crowd, and he felt compassion for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things. So we have the disciples. They've been on their trip, going from city to city. They're by twos. The time has come to an end. Now they're coming back to Jesus, and they're reporting what they've been doing. Very common, right? You know, we have missionaries that we send out. They'll come back and they'll give a report on what they've been doing, and we're interested. We want to know what the Lord's been doing through them. The same thing here with Jesus. And you can only imagine the enthusiasm. You have these people, they're excited. You know, I healed a dozen people with this, and this person hadn't walked in 25 years, and suddenly he's leaping and jumping around, and this and that. And maybe there's somebody was afflicted with demons, and I said the word, and it was gone. I mean, it would have been just the most amazing experience to have endured. So they're telling Jesus, and they're completely enamored to tell him. However, there's still a lot going on. So while they're doing this, while they're reporting to him, he is saying that they didn't even have time to eat in verse 31. So that's pretty busy when you can't take time away to eat. So when you think about it, so let's think of what that looks like. So here's Jesus with his disciples. The disciples have come back, and they're reporting. They're just elated, but yet there's still stuff going on. What would be some of the things that would be going on among the people that Jesus has to deal with at that very time? What's still going on? Yeah, you still have people that are coming up. They're wanting healing. What else might be going on? You have people that are possibly demoniacs. I could picture people carrying somebody up who's thrashing and carrying on, perhaps. People who want an audience with Jesus. They want to talk to him. There's more than one place in the Bible where people come up and they want, starting with Nicodemus, they want an audience to talk with Jesus, maybe to discuss, to debate with Jesus. So you have all this stuff going on while the disciples are talking to him, and also they are super tired. Jesus is exhausted. Dealing with people, I've been told, can be exhausting, especially when the people have great needs. And you are actually helping to meet those needs. It can be an exhausting situation. And there's bazillions of people. And they're coming and going, coming. We talked about last week, did the disciples ever get tired of all those people? I mean, they had to be tickled to be a part of the kingdom. Yes, I'm going to be a part of I'm going to be a foundation stone. Holy cow, this is a lot of work. You don't even have time to eat. That's quite a big deal. Right? I mean, I hate missing one meal, much less you can't get several, perhaps. And Jesus realizes that. And so, Jesus' plan in verse 31, he's going to get away with the disciples, and they're going to sail away, and they're going to recuperate. He's going to give them some downtime, and frankly, some downtime for him too, because of what he's been through. So, they go, and they take off in the boat. However, what are the people doing? They're watching. Huh. Well, look, he's going down there. Let's go that way. So now you're a disciple. You're in the boat. You're thinking, at last, I'm going to get a moment's peace. Huh. Where are the people going? You know? And you realize they're going the same place you're going. Jesus, maybe we should go somewhere else. I mean, how is this going to affect you? These people are going the same place you're going, and you're not going to get a break. You know, you come to shore, and there's these people, and they're singing the same song. I need to be healed. My cousin here has a demon. I want an audience with Jesus. I disagree with some of Jesus' teachings. What do you guys think about this? On and on and on. This is, for your notes, the perfect storm for a breakdown. I'll call this a ministry breakdown. This is the perfect storm. They're tired. They're hungry. They're weary. They've been ministering. There are so many people. This was the perfect, justifiable, reasonable time to put one's foot down and demand a break. No! Y'all go home! I and my disciples, we need a break. Y'all go home. Come back tomorrow. That would have been perfectly justified. And I mean, some people wouldn't have liked it, but most people would have understood, yeah, that's probably what the disciples wanted to do. And who knows what they were saying among themselves. Oh, great, there's that one guy who's always yelling at us. He's there. And there's that other person. Oh, didn't he heal him last week? What are they saying among themselves? Jesus' reaction to the people is just, it is mind-boggling to me. If I can put myself in the disciples' place, I mean, I've been super tired. You've all been super tired from doing things. And then you're asked to do one more thing, but not just one small thing, and one more big thing you're being asked to do. I've already done all sorts of big things, right? So Jesus' reaction to the people spoiling his plans, the word is compassion. Again. And I'm going to say it again in Exodus when God appears to Moses and passes before him. The first attribute he says, the Lord, compassionate and gracious. And here we have it again. Last week we had the same thing, compassion. Jesus has compassion. That's crazy to me. That's crazy good. His love and concern for them transcended his fatigue. I can't do that. Hardly. He even though he was dog-tired, and he was, his love and compassion exceeded that and propelled him and enabled him to keep on working. Hunger, fatigue, grief, possible grief. There again, remember, he just heard about his cousin John. Constant busyness. He taught them many things, it says, too. So he taught them right away, and he taught the disciples a whole lot more, if nothing else, by the example that he gave. I know every one of us probably has a story where things are really messing up. Maybe not messing up, but you're just exhausted. You're at the end. One of my daughters called. She visited last week. Actually, it's this week. And she had got together with one of her girlfriends at church, and they both had kids about the same age, and they're all playing together and having a great time. However, she says her kids were less than perfect. Which I don't know. I think my grandkids are perfect. But anyway, they were less than perfect, and she was kind of frustrated about that. And her friends' kids seemed really more on, like they're more perfect. And she was upset. And she says, my daughter says, I didn't know whether to be upset, whether to, comfort them, whether to rebuke them. So I pretty much did them all. And we've all of us that have kids, we've been there. I'll yell at you, I'll comfort you, And so she wrote an email to her friend apologizing for that, saying, I want so much for my kids to have a heart for Jesus, and I'm trying so hard, and I feel like I take one step, I'm paraphrasing her words, I'm taking one step forward and 15 steps back, and it's just hard. And her friend responded with an email that is so beautiful, I asked permission to share it, and it's almost poetic. It could be poetic with a couple of twists. So here's what she wrote to my daughter. Yes, that's hard, We can maybe make them change their outward actions, but of course it doesn't mean much if their heart isn't changing. Fortunately, I think that's an interesting word here. She says, fortunately, we do not possess the power to do that. It's not all on us. We cannot make the seeds grow, nor the sun to shine, nor the rain fall. Our job is just to be out in that garden, pulling weeds and tending our rows. It helps me to remember that. My job is to surrender my life to the Lord and let Him work in me. I pray the Lord will work in their lives as well. Oh, my goodness. I can't hardly end it. That's just so beautiful. Keeping mind of what our task is, what our responsibility is, and allowing God to do the rest. My daughter, I won't say which one it is, some of you probably know, she's super passionate, and she wants so much for things to work well. But her friend reminded her, we can't do that. But we are in the middle of it. We're pulling weeds, we're tending our rows, we are helping these children as much as we can and setting things up and hoping the Lord will do the rest. Beautiful, beautiful poem. And here these disciples are kind of in a situation where it's not going well for them, at least as their personal situation is concerned. Well, in verse 35, when it was already quite late, so they'd been there a good part of the day again, his disciples came to him and said, "This place is desolate and is already quite late. Send them away so that they may go into the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat." But he answered them, "You give them something to eat." And they said to him, "Shall we go and spend 200 denarii in bread and give them something to eat?" And he said to them, "How many loaves do you have? Go look." And when they found out, they said, 5 and 2 fish. So, the need the disciples brought to Jesus. What did the disciples say to Jesus? What's the problem with the people? They're hungry. What were they really saying? Exactly. Get them out of here. I know. I can come out looking really good, be altruistic. I'm concerned about the people. They're probably hungry. Let's get rid of them. Let's send them out so they can go ahead and get some food. That's how I see it, And Jesus, I think, sees it the same way because of his response. You give them something to eat. Oh, well, in other words, they're not going away. They're going to stick around. So the disciples have to brainstorm a little bit. They have to figure out what's going on. So they're brainstorming 200 denarii, that's 200 days' wages. There are so many people there that there's no way they have enough money in their money box to even buy enough food for all these people. So they immediately go there to try to figure out what to do, which most of us probably would do too. But then somebody comes up with a something. So hold your place and turn to John chapter 6 for just a second. John chapter 6 and verse 8, because this is the parallel passage here. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There's a lad here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but what are these for so many people?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down to eat," or sit down. Now there was much grass in that place, so the men sat down in number about 5,000. So they find a lad who has lunch. Somebody came prepared with lunch. Somebody, I don't know what the deal is, whether mom just, packs lunch up for Johnny and he goes out, with his lunch, but somebody has thought ahead. He's prepared. But he gives it freely. His lunch is freely given for your notes. The question has to be asked, how did Andrew know about that? How did he find out? You're talking about 5,000 people. Now, by the way, that's just the men. So a lot of guesstimates are saying there could be between 15 and 20,000 people there if you include women and children. And obviously there was at least one child there. So you're talking lots and lots and lots of people. So one thing, the young person had to be relatively close to the situation, to the disciples, because they're not going to wander through the 20,000 people looking for food. That would take all day in and of itself. And so, in my mind, and I could be wrong, one of two things happened. Either, Andrew looked and he saw oh, you have lunch. Would you mind sharing your lunch? Or he came up to them, which I prefer. He came up with them with his lunch and offered to them. I kind of hope that's the case because it just seems more beautiful to me. And so he gives that lunch to the disciples. But even so, notice the attitude. But what are these for so many people? Yeah, I mean, this is a great looking lunch. For me, you know. Well, let me show you what good it does. So back to Mark 6 and verse 40. They sat down in groups of hundreds and fifties, and Jesus took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up toward heaven, he blessed the food and broke the loaves, and he kept giving them to the disciples to set before them. And he divided up the 2 fish among them. They all ate and were satisfied. And they picked up 12 full baskets of the broken pieces and also of the fish. And again, there were 5,000 men who ate the loaves. So, there's an orderly arrangement, 50s and 100s. You say, why? Well, so you can kind of know how many you have and whatnot. So what does it look like? Jesus blesses the food, and Jesus is there. He probably has this basket of food. There's 5 small loaves of bread, and there's 2 fish. What would it look like to you if you're relatively close up? Pure speculation, yes, I know, but I do that all the time, right? So picture somebody picking up this loaf of bread and breaking it, and then when you break it, you have 2 loaves of bread. You hand it out, you break it, you have 2 loaves of bread, 2 loaves of bread, 2 fish, 2 fish, 2 fish. And you picture in your mind now the disciples are the ones who are, by the way, I didn't sign up to be a waiter. I signed up to be a pillar in the kingdom. Wait tables? So I picture the disciples with baskets, and they are dispersing the food to these groups. Passing it down, running back, maybe the fold of their garment, a lot of food, they're running out as fast, and Jesus is just doing whatever he's doing. Now, between 5 and 20,000 people, there's a lot of this going on. What would it look like from a distance? I mean, just like he's waving his hands or something, and yet you're getting food. And everybody gets fed, and how fed are they? They're satisfied. They got enough to eat to where they could say, oh no, I like Thanksgiving in our house. Really, I can't eat even one more. No, you're completely satisfied. And yet, there's leftovers. And the leftovers is, well, how many baskets? What do you suppose those are for? Disciples. There's 12 disciples. Why not 13 baskets? Why not 13? My feeling is, I'm sorry, Peggy, go ahead. Yes, exactly. And that's for the disciples, I think. Also for that, yes. Why not Jesus? I truly think Jesus is grieving about John. All of you, or most of you, have been in situations where you have a family member that's really close to you that passes away. How does it affect your appetite? You don't have an appetite. Sometimes, depending on how close they are, you don't have an appetite for days. I mean, your stomach literally just clamps shut, and eating's the last thing you want to do. I think this lends credence to the fact that Jesus probably was in mourning as well. And if that's the case, think of all this other stuff he's been doing. Even though he's in mourning, when you and I are in mourning, okay, I won't say you, I don't know what you do. What I do is I'll go in my room, shut the door, I'll be by myself. Mourning makes me want to be by myself. Jesus, if he is in mourning, as like I think he is, he's out there with all these, he's ministering, tired, fatigued, can't hardly stand up, and yet he's still ministering. He doesn't eat the food because there's no appetite for him to eat the food. Now here's one more question, going back to the lad who freely gave his lunch. What if he didn't give it? What if he didn't give it? What do you think? I know it kind of sounds like a dumb question, but maybe it'll make sense. Peggy? Okay. Jesus would have made it happen no matter what? I agree. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, think about that too. What does Jesus need with any of us? He doesn't need any of us, but he wants us, and he uses us. So here is this little lad who brings his meal. Now, if he didn't bring it, he'd had a great meal. I'm so glad my mom takes care of me. Hey, look, I brought my lunch. Are you hungry? Too bad. My sinful self, right? And there's also a little risk involved too, because he gave up his lunch. Now, what's not guaranteed? He might go without lunch. I mean, Andrew didn't say, look, if you give your lunch to Jesus, he'll give you much more. Here, let me have it. No, there's no indication of that. The little boy saw a need. He says, well, I will give it. And oh my goodness, that's what God does with you and I. Sometimes we offer stuff to the Lord and we think this is squat. This is nothing. But the Lord has the talent of taking our nothing and turning it into something. Here is 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, and 5 to 20,000 people are fed because somebody stepped forward and said, yeah, I want to give my lunch. So for you and I, God asks us to do something. And it may be something significant. More often than not, it's not, right? And we say, well, what difference does it make? Well, if God's involved, all the difference in the world. Every bit of it. He can take something so small and make something amazing out of it. And my question is, what do you have to offer? What is it that the Lord is asking of you? And I say of me too. I'm not, what's he asking? Well, it's not much. Well, it wasn't a big lunch either, right? The Lord takes it, and the Lord can do amazing things with it. Well, turn back to John chapter 6 just for a moment. So everybody's fed. Everybody is, I'll use the phrase, dumb, fat, and happy. One of my sons, my son Luke, who's probably watching, sent me some cinnamon rolls. He lives in Coeur d'Alene, so he did a, what's that? No, it was me. I forget the point I was going to make now. See? Well, anyway, let's move on. So John chapter 6, verse 14. Therefore, when the people saw the sign which he had performed, they said, this is truly the prophet who is to come into the world. Verse 15, so Jesus, perceiving that they were intending to come and take him by force to make him king, withdrew again to the mountain by himself. He didn't do that right away. But the people are connecting the dots. Wait a minute. Where did this food come from? Did anybody see the truck here? The food truck arrive? Where did this food come from? A little boy's lunch? What? Had anything like that ever been done in the Old Testament, where food was kind of divided like that? Yes, exactly. 2 Kings chapter 4, Elijah had a group of 100 prophets there. Somebody brought some food, including 20 small barley loaves, and Elijah said, disperse that among the people. And the person said, well, there's only 20 loaves, there's 100 men. And Elijah said, there will be enough, and there was. So it's kind of like what Jesus did, only Jesus did it commercially and on a broad scale. The people are connecting the dots. He is the one. For your notes, this is the high water mark for Jesus' popularity. This is as popular as Jesus will get, per se. From here on out, things will start to deteriorate, especially between him and the leaders. So you ask yourself, how is Jesus going to deal with this? They're saying, he's the one, he is king like 5 minutes ago. We are going to make him king. I get free food anytime I want. He's the king. And they're going to take, and they're talking among themselves. And that's a lot of people. And even if it'd be a big deal if they did this. So turn back to Mark chapter 6. We see what Jesus does to deal with this. In Mark chapter 6, verse 45, immediately Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side of Bethsaida, while he himself was sending the crowd away. After bidding them farewell, he left for the mountain to pray. So Jesus takes charge. We don't know how he did this. Now, you have a lot of people. Now, dealing with people and crowds, I've mentioned before, can be a really scary thing. I mean, if they are for you, if they're on your side, it's a beautiful thing. But if they turn against you, it could be a downright scary thing. We're talking crowd mentality. So you have this crowd here. They are determined that they're going to make Jesus king. Now, think about when Paul, back in Acts, they were heralding him as a god, and Barnabas as a god, and they're yay. And when they finally persuade them, the people, that they aren't gods, they stone Paul to death. I mean, they're talking about crowds turning very quickly. And so, but you have this 5,000 group. It says, first of all, Jesus disperses with his disciples. He sends them out into the lake. Why do you suppose he does that, by the way? Why the disciples first? Say it again. Get away from the crowd, perhaps? Get some rest, perhaps? Any other thoughts? Now picture yourself, you're a disciple. What is the one thing you want to see more than anything else? You want to see this man crowned king. I want him king. You guys want him king? Wow, this is great. The disciples would have been no help. They would have said, we agree. So the first thing he does, he gets the disciples out of there, because I think they would have been more of a problem than a help. And then, amazingly, Jesus somehow disperses the crowd. These people that are determined to make him king, he persuades them to leave, and they don't turn on him or anything. Of course, I know he's God, and he is in control of things. But just looking at it from a human perspective, that's a scary bunch of people, and you're not going along with what they want. And it can be unpredictable, and yet Jesus had the ability to make them leave, and they did. And we see what Jesus did, of course. Jesus goes to the top of the mountain, a hill nearby, and he prays. What a day. What an event. Takeaways, final points. Anything that occurs to you? Linda. Oh, really? Oh, how nice. Jesus views disruptions as opportunities for ministry. And some nut job said that she wrote that down. No. Nice, thank you. Anyone else? It's not too convicting, is it? Looking how Jesus acts and reacts and how I do. My final thought is, what's in my hand to offer in service to God? What's in my hand? What does God want? What does he see as a need? Go ahead, Jen.
I made 50 cents, you can have my 50 cents to pay the mortgage, And God says we should have faith as a little child. Bring him up high.
Okay.
No sense of, understanding or being
Oh, so cool. Little child contributing what to him is a lot of money, and the parent goes, oh, that's pretty sweet. It's kind of the same kind of thing. God's that way for us. We need to be like children too. Thanks, everybody. Let's go ahead and close in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much. Jesus, we know he came to earth to die on the cross for our sin. He absolutely did, and rose from the dead to prove it's all true. But in the meantime, as he's ministering, Lord, he's giving us examples. He's giving us direction and how you want us to live. And Lord, I just thank you for the example Jesus has here. He was flesh and bones. He probably was grieving about his cousin's death. He and his disciples were exhausted, complete, ongoing ministry to people. And even when his plans were disrupted, he still saw people as people who needed things. He had compassion. I pray that you might give us, Lord, a heart of compassion for each other, a heart of concern, and also help us to be willing to give whatever we have to serve you, Father. And you're knowing, again, you are able to take whatever it is, how little or how big, and make it something amazing because you delight in using what we offer. Heavenly Father, please be with Pastor as he preaches your word today. Fill him with your Spirit, with power, with compassion. I pray, Lord, with zeal. May we hear the word. May we be built up in our faith. And Lord, please be with Joseph and the worship team, preparing hearts that we might receive the word more willingly. In Jesus' name, amen.